Ed. I am so excited that you're going to be a part of our leadership summit. And I know you're talking about resilient leadership, developing competencies to lead in
Fantastic.
challenging
Yeah.
times. Can you tell us a little bit more about the session and kind of what you're going to cover in it?
Yeah, happy to, Aubrey. Thank you for the opportunity to do this. I'm really looking forward to it. I just think this is a really timely topic. Most of us in leadership, especially this time of year, we're counting down the days, and that's normal and that's okay. But what I oftentimes see is just an exhaustion and this challenging work, and particularly in, I think most of us agree, these challenging times. So what I like to do is do a deeper dive into what does it take? I'm asking the question, what does it take to be a resilient leader, to be able to plug through these difficult times, the difficult days, the challenges of school leadership, and how can we emerge from that, our professional and personal lives intact, and really a sense of we made it through this storm. What does that look like? So I go into, and I'll present this next week, a definition of resilience. And I like to lean on kind of two aspects. Mental health professionals or psychologists would tell you that resilience in us as individuals is when we can withstand and recover from personal and professional difficulties. So the ability to get through all of that and to emerge on the other side, standing strong, being even better than when we started. So that's sort of on the people side. I'm also really intrigued by when you look at the definition of resilience, you can look at it through the lens of the physicist would talk about resilience in materials, steel that is resilient, polymers that are resilient. And what they talk about resilience as an element of elasticity, able to spring back into your original shape. That's the scientist talking, but I think that there's some real truth in that for us as leaders to look at both the sort of the material side of it and the individual side of it, withstanding and recovering from difficulties, but developing elasticity. I like both of those definitions. We'll unpack that and talk about that. And then I want to go into why is it so hard to be resilient today? I was just reading an article recently that came across my desk, and it talked about leadership. Leadership just feels heavy right now. And why is that? And part of the thing they say is it used to be that leadership, we could rely on proximity and routine. And that world has changed. Now, for us in schools, we still probably have the proximity piece. We're still doing it, well, minus COVID, we're still doing it in one place, although that's even changing. But the routines have changed. And when routines change, we have to change. We have to have elasticity, as the physicist would say. So I'm going to unpack what I see as I talk about the headwinds of school leadership. And I make it easy. Aubrey, you know this about me. I like alliterations. I like to give you 3 A's to remember. So my 3 A's of the headwinds of school leadership. We live in an age of anxiety, and our students really feel that. We live in an age of acceleration. Things are coming at us so fast, and they challenge us. The human being is not built to withstand that kind of rapid change. It will cause anxiety. And then the third factor there is what the author David Brooks talks about in one of his books, The Age of Accomplishment. And he poses the reality that many, and folks have done studies on high school seniors, and posed the question, what do you think your parents want most from you? To be a good person or to get into a good college? And 80% of high school seniors will say, well, all my parents care about is that I get into a good college. If we buy into that, I consider that malpractice. We've got to understand that the headwinds of accomplishments, I want our students to do great things, but I also want them to be good people of character and purpose. And I think we all as educators want that. So those are the headwinds, the age of anxiety, age of acceleration, and age of accomplishment. Those are the challenges we face. And then we'll go on from there. Once we define that, we'll talk a little bit more then about what our strategies are facing those headwinds. I'm not hearing you, Aubrey.
Sorry, I can
There we go. Now I
better
can.
session for today's world, Ed, because I mean, look at the world we live in, and I'm so excited you're going to talk about this topic. I'm curious, when we're thinking, I mean, don't give it all away, Ed, but
No, no,
we want to save some for the
I say
session. But when we're thinking about these leaders, what are some key elements of being a leader in a challenging time like today? Can you give us a little hint?
the phrase I will keep coming back to, and I talk about this a lot in my current work with schools and developing a leadership team, any of the schools I've gone to in transitional leadership, the real focus is what I call strategic self-awareness. And what that looks like is kind of three things: knowing and leveraging your strengths. I know what kind of leader I am. I know what gifts I bring to the organization. I know what I look like when I am at my best. Now, knowing that and bragging about it, two different things. There's a little bit of humility that needs to go along to counteract the hubris that sometimes we are drawn into. But knowing and leveraging our strengths, knowing what they are, leaning into that, yes, celebrating it, being at your best every day. The opposite side of that coin is an equal awareness of your vulnerabilities. I know the things that I may be not as good at, or I know what my strengths are, but those strengths are at their best when they're in a particular context. When the context changes, as it did, if we can remember 5, 6 years ago with COVID, those strengths, we had to come up with a different playbook. We had to experience elasticity in order to come away from that. So, what I talk about in strategic self awareness is knowing and leveraging your strengths, being aware of your vulnerabilities, and managing that polarity. That's the key, managing the polarity. There's a lot of people who have written all kinds of stuff on that notion of polarity. I bring it back to what does it mean for us day to day in our leadership? The polarity is I know my strengths, but I also know my weaknesses and vulnerabilities. I'm not afraid to lean into those and admit those and to say to the team around me, I need you right now. I need the strengths that you have that I don't have. The humility to do that is really important. That's what I call strategic self-awareness. And then we'll unpack that a little bit more in the session next week.
I am so excited. Thanks again, Ed, for being a part of this summit. And we look forward to hearing the whole session on May 7th.